All right, I think we're going to get started. Can everybody hear me? Good. I don't even feel the need to introduce myself. I see so many wonderful, familiar faces. It's really lovely. My name is Elena Backrack, and I serve with great pleasure as the Executive Director of the Newburyport Art Association. First, my NAA thanks to an NAA Dream Team for helping us put this together. Our thanks to Skip Moats, Susan Spellman, John Raleigh, Jay McCarthy, and of course, Warren Moskowitz. Thank you all very much. It is simply perfect that we are here in this space, the newly installed Range Lights Community Sculpture Garden, to celebrate Al, given that this sculpture garden was a glimmer in his mind's eye, taking shape many, many years ago, and a project about which he remained deeply passionate. In the remaining weeks Al had, I was fortunate enough to have a few moments with him, and I'm profoundly content that he knew his dream and that of many others, some of whom are here today, had become reality. Thank you all for coming to help us, Rena, Warren, Philip, and Gaston and their families celebrate Al's many, many contributions to the life of the Newburyport Art Association. I just want to point out to the folks standing, there are a couple of benches in the back here if you want to grab a seat. I'm taking the liberty of revisiting some of the remarks I offered at Al's memorial service in early March, as they still resonate for me today. For me, Al was a personal and professional standard bearer. I cared deeply for Al and Rena as individuals, and more so for them as a couple. They have been living examples for me of what it means to live life in truth, intellectually, dare I say politically, emotionally, and morally. There are so many ways in which Al touched the life and the future of the NAA, and we are here to celebrate them all with his family, friends, and colleagues. I think perhaps what the staff and I will remember most was how nervous we became when we saw him coming through the front door of the Sargent Gallery. We knew, we were quite certain, in fact, that we would be in trouble for having the heat on too high, or the air conditioning on too low, and or for having let a small repair go on too long unattended. We loved Al very much, and it has been hard to imagine him not wandering the galleries again. Although speaking for myself, I believe in angels, and I do believe Al is wandering the galleries, is with us here today, and I expect will steer us still. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce NAA lifetime member Skip Moats, a longtime friend and co-conspirator of Al's on all good things. Skip.
Isn't this glorious out here? Look at this space. Having Al's sculptures here and this wonderful sculpture garden that finally has come into being. Just a glorious event. I have to apologize for my voice. I've had a little bit of Montezuma's Revenge earlier in the week, and this is not Jack Daniels, but it is tea, and probably helped me along a little bit. I want to start my remarks with a frontispiece. And there are many photographs in there. This is a detail of one of them. And it's my favorite photograph of Al at the chop saw in December of 1999, when we all jointly started a renovation that changed the life and direction of the Art Association. And Al was the captain of the helm, the leader, and we spent hundreds of hours together making this place different in that period of time. Of course, Al loved art. He loved these buildings. He loved the Art Association. And all of that love and talent combined to make a renaissance of this place over that 1997 to 1990 to 2002 5-year period. His contributions continued, and I'll touch upon many of them as we go through my remarks. He was my friend, my mentor, my cohort. He often referred to me as a youngster. I accept that, but I do turn 80 tomorrow, so. When this picture was taken, it was, 17 years ago, so we were both, I was in my early 60s, Al in his early 70s. Oh, to be young again. Al joined the Art Association Board of Directors in 1991, along with John Raleigh, as a member, in a meeting at the Jabberwocky Book Cafe held by then President Karen Dardensky, looking for new leadership in what was becoming a troublesome organization. John became president for 2 years, which was a wonderful experience. I know John. I remember when I asked John to rejoin the board, he had this glazed look in his eyes. Al was his vice president. After the 2 years, John continued to work on bringing photographers into the Art Association, and Al continued as vice president, meeting the challenges that were confronting the organization that would test its actual existence for a short period of time. I'm going to tell Al's story in the form of an allegory. Alfred the Talented and the Triumph of Art. The great lord of art and culture proclaimed to his disciples in the port that I shall give you an apostle of the arts, Sam of the ancient clan, of the ancient Sargent clan. He will create for you a fine school of art, a fine art association that will fulfill the prophecy that someday a group would be formed to restore the cultural splendor in a city rich in tradition and appreciation of the arts that will grow into a great asset for the city. 150 disciples, his students, fill the new association with talent, enthusiasm, and hope. Successful decades passed, the great Lord was pleased. He told his disciples, "Now I shall provide for you a building of brick, mortar, and timber upon the waters of the great Merrimack as your temple of the arts. However, I shall test you. You must prove your love for the art of teaching and service to the community can overcome the darkness that has prevailed. This building, once a fine center of maritime commerce, now stands neglected. It smells of oil. Its years as a pool hall, the Idle Hours Pool Hall, some of you may remember, has left scars. It resides next to oil storage tanks, thanks to the Cashman brothers, in a decaying and industrial section of the town. You must rebuild your temple, you disciples, you warriors of art. Enthusiastically, the disciples made the first floor of the pool hall into a gallery. New exhibitions brought new members. Their numbers became 400. Margette the Steady, Bob the artisan, Rob the architect of the Leanna clan refurbished the second floor into a gallery and studio. The great Lord was pleased. The port was shedding the darkness. Urban renewal brought renewed hope. Housing and rent prices, however, increased, forcing many artists to leave the town. Sadly, over the next 2 decades, the association began a slip into the darkness. The number of disciples fell in half. Those remaining warriors of the art were dedicated to seeking the truth that would restore the association. They called upon the great Lord to send them a prophet to lead them out of the growing darkness. The prophet came, viewed their plight, and wrote an epistle to the Temple of the Arts on the waters of the Merrimack. My brothers and sisters, you have gone through a period of stagnation and disinterest. I will send you my disciple, Alfred the Talented. 30 years a teacher of the industrial arts, a gifted creator of the form and three-dimensional sculpture, gifted in the teaching of sculpture. And Alfred began his quest to restore the temple. Alfred the Talented and John the Raleigh of the Raleigh clan poured concrete over the oil-soaked soil of the basement. They installed floor columns known to all as Alfred's columns. They're on the first floor. Alfred saw that the rear brick wall was bulging, risking collapse. Mark of the Brophy clan, and Mark is here. A skilled tradesman joined the team and installed large redundant wooden timbers to take the load off the wall and stars and bars to protect it against earthquake. Yet, for the association, it became the worst of times. Disciples continued to leave. Show participation dropped. President Joe of the Graff clan wrote that the association was falling apart. We may be reaching a crisis. We may be closing down. The number of disciples declined to the low 100s. But the association did not close. Margette the Steady of the Leanna clan once again took the helm, and with the warriors of the arts sailed the listing ship through the storm. It was the morning and the evening of the second year. Susan of the Spellman clan, who Alfred calls Susan the Fair, became president. Alfred the Talented became editor of the Sketchpad. A new colored awning adored the front door. Window boxes under the windows added color. Susan and her vice president, Jean of the Snow Clan, painted a large outdoor mural in a primitive style to go above the entrance to the temple. They said it was the Apostle Sam of the Sargent clan. Everyone else said it was Alfred the Talented. It was the morning and the evening of the third year. Susan the Fair held a workshop of disciples to envision the values and the missions of the association. Alfred the Talented attended, as did new board members Skip of the Moats clan, whom Alfred calls Skip the manager, and Skip's consort, Marge the organizer. It was a breakthrough event. The disciples declared, there is a new art association, yelling out welcome, friendly and supportive. Outdoor sculpture lined a beautiful walkway through a sculpture garden. There is an addition to the building. There are constant workshops and education programs. The spirits so moved the disciple Mary of the Baird clan that she donate $5,000 to start the annual regional show. Membership reached 300. It was the morning and the evening of the 4th year. In the 5th year, came no willing prospects for the presidency. Many asked, all declined. Alfred the Talented 3 times asked Skip the manager, who Alfred saw that with his 3 decades of management experience at IBM could lead a management reform. Skip 3 times denied him. The great Lord was displeased. He sent his art angel in the form of a burning bush into Skip's dreams. "You are like the thrice denying Peter the Apostle," angrily exclaimed the art angel. The great Lord is displeased. Skip consented with the blessing of Marge, the organizer. They formed a team. Susan the Fair continued to work on Children's Artling program, the Budding Artist Show. Peg of the Dalton clan continued her long-standing calling to teach the children. Alfred continued as vice president and his calling as a teacher of sculpture. He pursued his quest to restore the temple to the arts. The Temple's Council created a building renovation and expansion master plan. Alfred was the leader. Alfred added his son, Warren, the physicist and stringer of electrical cables, to the team. If one from the Moscow clan was good, 2 were better. Susan of the Hammer clan and Susan the Fair joined the team as painters of walls, and Kent of the Miller clan added his support. The building team retained Linda, the architect of another Miller clan, skilled in the new and restorer of the old. She designed the renovation of the building's interior and a new rear wing, where you're sitting right here. Alfred the Talented added many ideas to the design with his 3D design home program, much to Linda's consternation at times. The team, led by Alfred the Talented, eagerly started the interior renovation after December closing. Alfred commanded the crew from his quarterdeck with the chop saw as his helm. Down went the volunteers' sitters' kiosk and display cabinet. Up went the association's first office, where the old corner gift shop had been. Up went a new gift shop in the opposite corner. Alfred then tacked the ship from his helm at the chop saw to the unfinished back corner of the gallery that opened out through a door to the backyard. Down came the long storage closet that held the movable display panels, behind the soiled linen drape that covered the entire back vestibule. This was to be the site of a handicap accessible bathroom. Time was running short, 1 week before receiving of art for the opening January show. Alfred declared, "We must hire tradesmen." They were hired, the bathroom was completed. It was the morning and evening of the 5th year. Linda, the architect, designed a fine new 2-story wing on the rear of the Temple of the Arts. Alfred envisioned a small performance stage in the gallery, classrooms on the 2nd story. It was an exciting plan for more space. Hurdles loomed, fundraising remained unresolved. Alfred was undaunted. He saw the solution: build it with a volunteer team. Skip looked at Alfred skeptically. "Alfred, you were in that frozen foxhole at the Battle of the Bulge too long." The building team was led by Alfred the Talented, now turned to handicap accessibility into the building. The handicap ramp could access the building through a side opening if David of the clan of Hall and Moscow, owners of the abutting tannery property back here, granted an easement. David readily agreed. He told the team he was moving a small shed there to rebuild as retail space. The buildings could share that handicap ramp. Early in the morning of the next day, well before sunrise, an art angel again came into the dream of Skip the manager, delivering a simple message from the Lord: lease the hall building and make it a cathedral to the arts with a soaring ceiling. Alfred the talented saw the wisdom of the art angel's words, most accepted the idea, some question of what value was that old shack. It was the morning and evening of the 6th year. The 7th year began. The great Lord sent new disciples. John of the Raleigh clan returned bringing diversified skills. Bob of the Courier clan came and skilled in building projects. The team, led by Alfred the Talented, worked with David planning the project. Linda the architect drew plans for the new Laura Coombs Hills Gallery. David provided the construction plans. Linda drew plans for central air conditioning and a sprinkler fire suppression system throughout both buildings. Skip, the president of the council, raised the funds. When completed, the new gallery was magnificent. The renovations in the main building were magnificent. This was a renaissance, a triumph of the arts. Alfred the Talented was pleased. More disciples joined, their numbers now 400, and soon 800. It was the morning and evening of the 7th year. Now, art is dynamic. The great Lord of the arts did not rest. Alfred the Talented did not rest. This allegory of Alfred the Talented took place in real time over the calendar years of 1997 to 2002. In 2002, Al moved from his usual position as vice president to president of the Art Association. In 2002, the Laura Coombs Hill Gallery opened after 3 years of planning, to great applause both by members and the community and the press. In that year, after a year of planning, NAA held its first annual auction right out here on wet grass. A snowstorm came in May. It actually, in that year, the board hired for its first time an interim executive director, not knowing then if income would grow to fund it or not, but it did. Susan the Spellman, better known as Susan the Fair, filled that position. Full-time executive director followed, now in the capable hands of Elena and the outstanding board. But Al did not rest. He led the renovation of the Hartson Gallery upstairs. He built clever modules for storing art in a new secured room. We had theft of a piece of art. The artist was infuriated, although it had passed the time to pick art up. She reported it to the police. Detective Brunault came to investigate. And he said, "Where do you store your art when it's not picked up?" He said, "Well, we store it in the hall behind its very secure shower curtain." He says, "Well, that's a little tacky." So as a result, there's now a secure locked room, and there's a picture of these absolutely exquisite modules that Al designed, built up on the floor. He had it all laid out, bought a nail gun and they've been used ever since. He built all of the pedestal cubes for 3D display of sculpture. At his instigation, the two of us investigated replacing the old bent metal chairs with something new, and you're sitting on the new ones that now are 14 years old. Found them in Haverhill and Merrimack Street in a used furniture warehouse. They're new, but it was his instigation. But another major contribution came from Al in his tenure that was yet to come in the last few years. This Jack Daniels does help. Al and Rena were close friends with fellow New Yorkers Philip and Mario Stern. That friendship continued after Philip's death. Maria appointed Al executor of her estate, and in her will, after her death, included the bequest of her Charles Street home to NAA. Al oversaw the sale of that home, which at times had its moments. There were one sale was there, then it wasn't, and it took some time. But NAA, from that eventual sale, received a substantial legacy that is now the Philip and Maria Stern Memorial Endowment. A word about this glorious backyard space. Not many years ago, this was a humble backyard. The NAA property ended here. Rusted chain link fence around it. Coast Guard growth overgrown, hanging over it. Knotweed up to your shoulders. If you don't know what knotweed is, look back over there. You can hear it growing. I mean, it's intrusive, and that was the backyard. Al took the initiative to get it cut on a regular basis, and then landscape and plant grass. We had a landscaper come in, so that by the time of the first 2002 auction, at least grass was growing here. It was kind of damp, and the tent was over it. It was like nothing like what we had. Then when you looked at the auction this year in this glorious space, and a tent now covering this entire area, sculpture garden, and the NAA property, you see what an enormous change that's been. And Al played important roles in the design first of this, and then on the design committee that laid this glorious space out. And of course, the first exhibition of art, of sculpture, will be later this fall in September. But it's nice to see sculpture now by Al's hands adorning this space. I want to conclude with a quote from Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 in the last pages of that wonderful, alarming book. It doesn't matter what you do, so long as you change something from the way it was before you touched it into something that's like you after you take your hands away. The difference between the man who just cuts lawns and a real gardener is in the touching. A lawn cutter just as well not have been there at all. The garden will be there a lifetime. Al touched all of these buildings. There's not a wall, a space, a floor in the main building that he did not have a substantial impact on, and has built it not just for a lifetime, but for generations. As sculpture workshop students will carry his legacy through their lifetimes. So the renaissance of the Art Association in those years that Al made the contribution at the chop saw and what he did set the stage. You had to have the permanence of this association in this building. And that's one reason NAA, with some disagreement in the board in 1969, elected it to build it to have a presence in the town since their founding in 1948. Al brought that presence to a refined level that is a legacy that will last for generations. So Al is a friend. He's now deeply missed. We love you, man. Amen.
Alfred Nicole will now come up to the podium to do a brief reading from a friend of the family.
Hello. I remember very clearly the day I came home to find my then wife all excited about this man that she met, who she felt was going to have a great impact on the arts community here in Newburyport. And his name was Alfred Moskowitz. And I said to myself, well, isn't that it's happening to me too, because I just met this woman this very day, and she's going to have a big impact on the arts community here in Newburyport, and her name was Rena Espayat. And of course we thought there was no connection between this Rena Espayat and this Alfred Moskowitz. But as it turns out, that intuition was true. Between them, they've had an enormous impact on the arts community. And that unseen connection between the two of them was only the first of many, many connections that were going to be revealed in the due course of things. The way that they've connected all of the arts, the language arts of poetry and literature, with the visual arts, with musical arts. You have John Tavano here playing his music. That's another big connection that they made. It's a long reach. It was an enormous infusion of energy into our community. And my job today, a very humble job, I have to read a message, and it's not from the Lord of the Arts, and it's not even from the Art Angel. It's from a very classy poet in New York named Carolyn Raphael, who taught English at Queensborough Community College at CUNY for over 30 years. It's just an email, and you just won't get the impact of it unless you multiply it by about 500. Because these words, this simple email, only just shows one more part of the long reach of this couple. And you made me laugh because the themes are all the same. A few words for Alfred Moskowitz. This is from Carolyn Raphael. My husband and I wish we could be at the celebration for Alfred in Newburyport on July 10th, but since we cannot, here are a few remembrances. The delightful picture on the postcard we received reminds me of Alfred's capacity for fun. In fact, his giggle is one of my fondest memories of him. It bubbled freely and often. I remember with pleasure Alfred's tour of his sculptures when we stayed overnight with them. And I saved his enthusiastic email when we sent a book of Bernini's sculptures for Alfred's 90th birthday. When Alfred and Rena stayed overnight at our home, he remarked after his shower that we might consider lowering the temperature on the water heater to save money. Which we did. Always the helper. He was a delight to know and a fit partner for our wonderful Rena. Fondly, Carolyn and Larry Raphael. That's it.
And now we'll be joined for a few words from Warren Moskowitz, one of 3 sons.
Alfred Moskowitz was my father. Thank you all for coming to his memorial. It's hard to believe he's already been gone 5 months. My mother, my 2 brothers, and our wives and my children are here. We are deeply moved by your attendance here today. When Elena called me Friday morning to decide if the weather looked good enough to have this memorial today, I took a gamble and said yes. The forecast changed a lot between then and now, but it turned out okay. If I believed in such things, I might think my father wrote a persuasive letter to whoever is in charge of the weather. It's possible. My parents moved from Queens, New York to Newburyport 26 years ago. They fell in love with the place immediately. My father would often remark how polite and friendly Newburyport people were. People in New York express themselves with impolite gestures more than they do here. It didn't take long for my father to find the Newburyport Art Association and get involved and join the board of directors, as you heard from Skip. It was a perfect fit. The NAA provided a focus for so many of his favorite things: art, organizations of interesting, motivated people, construction, and there's been a lot of carpentry, wiring, and plumbing, as you heard about, innovative designs, serving the community, and teaching. He ran a sculpture workshop for many years here at the NAA. That's how I started sculpting. The NAA has grown, changed, and improved enormously over the years, thanks to the efforts of so many members, volunteers, board members, officers, employees, and donors. Some of you are here today. Several of the innovative improvements my father made are in daily use here at the NAA, like the picture hanging system and the hidden broom closet. Some have already been replaced by subsequent improvements. Walls have gone up and come down. That's the way with progress, each layer providing the foundation for layers of change to come. Yet, occasionally, one can be lucky enough to contribute to something tangible that lasts at least long enough to point to it and remember those who made it happen. The Hills Gallery is one such example. This Range Lights Sculpture Garden is another. I was privileged to have a role in both projects, which were the vision of Skip Motes and my father and others. They worked for over a decade to see this sculpture garden emerge as you see it today, ready for its very first opening 2 months from now. And with our inherited custodianship, it will continue to serve the community with fresh sculpture exhibits each year for decades to come. To help energize this space, the NAA Board of Directors have approved a $500 Alfred Moskowitz Award for the sculpture voted Best in Show by the Curatorial Committee. This will be an annual award funded by the many generous donations made to the NAA in my father's name. Though he never got to see this space filled with sculpture, he was able to see the stonework completed, and we will all be able to remember that he was one of the people that made this happen. Thank you again for coming, and please enjoy the barbecue. I think my father would have loved it, and he would have wrestled the tongs out of John Raleigh's hand to man the grill himself.